with the most recent Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC, the Indigo disc dropping a few days ago. We finally got a bunch of new Pokemon to the game and a bunch of returning Pokemon from past generations. And we finally found out all the new stats, all the new moves, and everything that's kind of changed with the game. The meta is still new and everything, but we know a lot of the stat distributions, a lot of the new moves, and pretty much all the move sets and any type of changes a lot of the new or returning Pokemon have gotten. So just kind of want to do a tier list. We're going into Regulation F. Everybody's going to be building new teams, and I just want to do a tier list kind of discussing all the returning and new Pokemon that we were going to be getting and kind of how they fare into VGC. I will be talking a little bit about singles, but there's mainly going to be a VGC tier list going into Regulation F, which starts in January. So keep that in mind. If you guys just want to tab out, listen to me talk, it's going to be kind of a longer video. I'm not going to try to make it incredibly long, but it'll probably go a lot longer than I wanted to because I like to talk about Pokemon. So I'll throw the list on screen for you guys right now. We got the S tier. It's going to be the stuff that you're going to be able to just kind of throw onto a team. These are Pokemon that you're going to just be able to like slap onto any team, and they'll do something at the very least. Kind of like stuff like Fluttermane and Iron Hands and a lot of the top tier stuff that we've had for quite a while already. Just as like an example. A+ tier is stuff that's really good mons. Not really like this most splashable stuff on the stuff, but it's like really consistent stuff that fits onto pretty much like 80% of the teams, 75% of the teams. A tier is your average stuff, just like your good tier. Not crazy good, but not bad, just solid. B is your more below average stuff. C is your more situational stuff. D is borderline useless apart from like one very specific niche or type of thing that they can do over some of the other Pokemon in the game. And the F tier, just no reason to really use them at all. They're just really bad. So apart from that, we got all the new stuff. I'm going to be going through everything in this list. The only stuff I will not be talking about is the stuff that probably won't be allowed for Regulation F. So like a lot of like the returning mythical legendaries or stuff that was not available in the past. So the new ones I'll probably talk about, some of the new legendaries, but I won't be ranking them on this list. So with that being said, if you guys like these videos, leave a like, subscribe, share the video. If there's anything I forget to mention, or if there's anything you guys want to add, let me know in the comments down below. 100% opinionated, so keep that in mind. It's based off of my opinion alone mainly, and just what I've been seeing and my experience from playing the game. So first we got Venusaur. I think Venusaur on Sun is really solid. I'm not going to put it higher than an A tier though. I think the main problem with Venusaur is I think Sun really isn't the greatest. It's good for Paradox mons, but like I think the problem with Venusaur is if you're going to be running a Sun team, you're usually going to be choosing Paradox Pokemon with the Paradox, the Photosynthesis ability, over Venusaur a lot of the time, and they give Venusaur a lot of competition. Don't get me wrong, it's like the best Chlorophyll mon in the game. It gets some really cool stuff, and actually got buffed. It actually ends up getting better, like a physical moveset now, because they actually gave it Poison Jab for, I don't know, however long it never had that. So it got buffed, but I still think its stats really aren't the greatest. It has better stats than like a lot of the other Chlorophyll users, but like compared to on par some like the higher tier Pokemon that are just gonna be getting played every single game, even in Sun, it still kind of falls off a little bit. I think the main thing is it's being able to have Terra with like Weather Ball, and Sun can maybe be good like with like Terra Fire or something, but it's kind of just one of those mons that's going to be more of a niche weather type mon. You're going to see this on Sun once in a while, but I don't think it's going to be really like incredibly good. But I'm going to put in like good tier because out of all the Chlorophyll users, it has probably one of the best typings and probably the best stats and the most consistent out of the Chlorophyll mons that we do have that you can run it under Sun if that's one of the weathers you're trying to look for. Up next we have Zebstrika. I know there's a lot of people that actually forgot this Pokemon existed. They really did. I'm going to put actually in C tier. I think if you really want to run this thing, you can actually run this thing with like electric spam type teams or even on like rain teams. I think one of the things that people are not actually taking into consideration is the 3 abilities this thing has. It has Motor Drive, Lightning Rod, and Sap Sipper. So if with Terra, you can actually Terra Zebstrika into a water type, and you can completely negate one of your weaknesses. So if you're a Terra water type, you can negate either the grass weakness, which is more common. It's the more common weakness, and you can only be weak to electric types, which aren't really the most common, at least currently. We might see a little bit of a rise because there are a lot of electric types being added to the game with the DLC, but at least as of right now when I'm recording this, they're not really the most common as of now. apart from like Iron Hands and maybe like one or two others like Thunderous. But if you're Terra Water, you pretty much negate two of your weaknesses. I think the only drawback is it raises your attack with Sap Sipper, and your attack really isn't the greatest, but I think it can work. It has a specific niche on like the more electric spam teams. It can soak up electric type moves with either Motor Drive or the Lightning Rod, and you can Terra Water and have only one weakness. Granted, its stats really aren't the greatest. I think it has like base 105 speed and not really the greatest offensive stats, but it has a really solid move pool. And with the Terra, just makes it a lot better. So it's a lot better than it was in the past. I think it has a specific niche, so I'll put it in like C tier. I've next got Superior. I'm going to put Superior in A tier. I think Superior, a lot of people aren't talking about this, but I think Superior is probably one of the best Pokemon in the game right now that's going to actually take advantage of the Stellar Terra. If you guys don't know how the Stellar Terra works, pretty much what it does is if the enemy team, I'm not sure if it relies on their Terra or if it's just if you use Terra Blast when you're Stellar Terra. I'm not 100% sure how that works exactly yet, but at least when you guys are probably seeing this, I probably already know how it works after I record this video, but at least when we're recording this, pretty much what Stellar Terra does is if you use Terra Blast, it actually gets increased to a 100 base power move that has no resistance. And if you use it on, I think it's a Terra type, the enemy team's Terra type, I think it does bonus damage, and it pretty much minuses your attack and special attack by 1. But with Contrary, you actually get a +1 attack and special attack boost. Plus, you have Leaf Storm, so you can actually buff your stats at the beginning as well. So, if you really wanted to, you can use like Terra Blast, get to +1, and then you're already at +1. You can start spamming Leaf Storm and a bunch of other stuff. Plus, you have Giga Drain for self-recovery. If you're at like +1 or +2, you're going to be getting a shit ton of health back. You have a bunch of other cool stuff like Glare. Substitute's really good. Terra Fire is also really good on Superior. There's a bunch of other stuff. It gets a decent amount of stuff. I think it gets Dragon Pulse, or I think it's either Dragon Tail or Dragon Pulse. There's a few other like niche coverage moves it gets. I think it gets Weather Ball now too, which can be kind of cool in like sun or under any type of weather, maybe in like rain or something. But I think Superior is one. I'm kind of biased because Superior is probably like my favorite starter mod in the entire game, out of the entire franchise. I have a team that I'm currently making around it. It should be done in the next couple days, and you guys will see that team, at least when I'm recording this. But I'm going to put Starter Superior at an A tier. I think it's going to be really, really good. And I think once people start figuring out the Stellar Terra type, you're going to be seeing it a lot more, because I think it's one of the best abusers of that Terra type. We got Blastoise. I'm going to put Blastoise at like a B tier. I don't think it's really that good. I think it just gets outclassed by so many other water types in the game. The only thing that Blastoise really has Shell Smash, and that's really about it. It's more of a bulky water type that doesn't really have the offensive pressure of a lot of the other ones that can kind of just do its job way better. I'm not really going to talk about it very much because a lot of people were hoping Blastoise got some significant buffs. And even with Terra, it's not really much greater. Like, at least power-wise, it's not really much more viable, at least. It's kind of more of a niche mon. And when you have like stuff like Suicune coming back, why would you ever use Blastoise over like Suicune? I think it's a lot better in singles. I think singles Blastoise could be a lot better, but in VGC it's not good. Vileplume's garbage. This thing's completely outclassed by Venusaur. There is no reason to use Vileplume over Venusaur. The only thing that this thing gets over Venusaur is Strength Sap, and that is about it. So I would not use Vileplume at all. It's not good. Even with singles, I don't even know how it's going to be really that good in singles. It's always been more of a low-tier mon in singles. Tentacruel can be decent. I'm going to put it like a C tier, but I think this mon's going to be way better in singles than VGC. I think the one thing that this thing has going for is its base 100 speed, and apart from that, it really doesn't do much. It also got a little bit of a buff to its physical move pool, because I think it's Swords Dance and Poison Jab now, so you can run more of a physical variant, but even then, you're weak to a lot of the Intimidators, and like the most common Intimidator is Landorus. So, and Scarf Landorus is really common right now. And there's a bunch of other Intimidators that got added to the game. So I don't know. I'll put it in C tier because I don't think it's like D tier worthy, but you're not going to be seeing it at all very much. It has decent abilities too with like Rain Dish and stuff, but not really going to be seeing it. Dodrio's garbage. I would not use this at all. This gets outclassed by pretty much like every other like flying type in the game, especially like the other normal flying types. Why would I use Dodrio over Staraptor, even if I wanted to use one of these type of mods? Staraptor has better abilities and outclasses this thing in any single way. Really unfortunate. Maybe you can see this thing used in singles, but for VGC it's really bad. Dugong, really bad mon, but it does get Perish Song, and it's pretty bulky, so in that way it has some use. So I'm not going to put it in F tier, but I think it's really bad. Duraludon, you're not going to see this thing at all. I'm not going to put it in F tier because you can maybe use it with like Eviolite, but I think it's going to be way better in singles than it is in VGC. Arculodon, I'm going to put in at a B tier. I think people are really overestimating this thing, and I think the main problem with this thing is you're kind of forced to Terra this thing. It's really reliant on a Terra type to actually do a significant amount of damage. I know it has base 135 special attack, but its abilities, the main ability you're going to be running is Stamina, and the most common thing you're going to be running is probably Assault Vest. So I think if you want to run this thing too, I think you can maybe run it with a Stellar Terra type and just like spam one move over and over, but I think it's more. It's really overrated, at least for me. I think Arculodon's probably one of the most overrated new Pokemon that's introduced to the game. Until I see this thing do stuff, I'm not going to put it that high on the list because even with like its signature electric ability, I think it's voltage, some voltage type ability. I forgot or the type move. I forgot the specific name, but it has a move that it's a 2-turn charge move, but it actually is a 1-turn type move that raises your special attack in Rain. You can maybe throw this thing onto Rain, but I haven't really seen it on Rain, and I don't think it's really going to be that good because it's kind of too slow, and its SpDef really isn't the greatest. You can kind of hit it on the special side, and Fairy types, being neutral to Fairy when Flutter Mane's running around and not having the best special defense still isn't that good. So I don't know how really good it's going to be. We'll find out, I guess. But until then, I'm going to put it in B tier. Hydrapple is another mon I think it has a lot of potential, but I just haven't really seen it played nearly enough. It has the bulk and the entire move pool to be incredibly good, and the grass dragon typing is really, really good. But I think the only problem is it also has Regenerator, if you guys know. Hydrapple actually also has Regenerator, which I think is pretty good. I don't think it's going to be as good in maybe VGC, apart from like Sweet Syrup or whatever that other ability is that lowers your evasiveness. But I think the one thing I really need to see out of this thing is more consistency. I haven't really seen it at all. I went against one team that had Hydrapple, and they tried to run it under Tailwind, and it wasn't really fast enough to outspeed like a lot of the really fast stuff, like over base 120. Like I was running Flutter Mane, I didn't have a speed boost, and I was outspeeding the thing still and kind of just destroying it, which is kind of the main problem with it. It's really weak to a lot of the more common stuff that you're going to be seeing every single game. But I do think this thing has a lot of potential. It has the really good bulky stats. It has really good offensive stats. Twin Beam is really good, or whatever its signature move is. It's a base 80 power move that has a 20% chance to become 160 base power on a random turn, which is really, really good. It has Syrupy Apple, which lowers the enemy's speed over 3 turns, which is still a really good signature move. It has stuff going for it, but I just haven't seen it really enough to put it higher than a B tier. Gouging Fire, I don't know if this thing's going to actually be legal. We're going to talk it as if this thing will be legal for Regulation F, but I do not think it will. But if it is, I'll try to rank it on this list, and I'll probably put it like an A tier. Pretty much what Gouging Fire is, it's offensive, but it's slightly slower than I think Entei is, and it has more defense, pretty much. And it's a Fire Dragon type, so I don't know really how I'd actually rank this thing. It has a signature move as well. It's pretty much like a Protect, but if you use like a contact type move, you get burned pretty much. But it does not block status moves, which kind of sucks, which I think makes it a lot worse. And I haven't really seen this thing at all, and I don't think it's going to be legal, but if I were to rank it, I'd probably throw it in A tier. I think it has potential and has a really good typing, but I can't really say too much about it because I haven't seen it very much. So we got Roaring Bolt. I think this thing can be good. If you guys not know what Roaring Bolt, I think it's going to be a little bit lower than actually Entei. I think it's kind of the worst out of the 3 new, or out of the Paradox, like ancient forms with like Walking Wake, Gouging Fire, and Roaring Bolt. I think it's probably the worst one, unfortunately, out of 3 of those. But it got a signature move, and I think there's some rate. Its signature move, I think it's Thunderclap. I think it's the signature move. Even then, it's not really that good. It's not really the greatest type move, and its Dragon move pool. Its move pool is kind of shallow. It has a better physical move pool than special move pool, but its physical stat really isn't the greatest, so it's kind of weird. It has a really great typing though, and I think if you're going to be running this thing, you're probably going to either run it like Assault Vest or like full out like Specs or like with that type of thing. Or like even like a booster energy or something. So I don't know. Can't really say too much about it, but it can be pretty good if it is legal, which I don't think it will be. We got Iron Boulder. I think this thing would be really good. If this thing was legal, I'd probably put it like A+ tier. It has a brand new rock stab move that is 95% accurate and 100 base power. That is a really consistent rock move. It's a rock psychic type. I think the only thing that's kind of holding this thing back is its move pool really isn't the greatest, at least for like the physical move pool. You have like 3 options with like close combat and like dual stab, and apart from that, it doesn't really get too much coverage. But you really don't need that, especially when you're base 124 speed and you have a really solid stats. So it's better than Terrakion is, I'll admit that. If it is legal, I'll probably put an A+ tier because you will see it a lot, especially with like a booster energy. It's incredibly fast. Iron Crown, I think I'll probably put in like A tier if it is legal for VGC Regulation F. It has really solid stats, and especially with like a booster energy, you can get the speed boost pretty damn easily, and it does get Expanding Force, which you can probably pair it against with like an Indeedee or with Terrain, and it can be pretty good. It also gets a new signature move, which is a steel move that hits twice. It's base 100 power, base 50, but it hits twice, and it can never miss, which is really solid. Really solid mon. I think it's actually better than Cobalion actually is, unfortunately, but I don't know if it's going to be legal, so I can't really talk about it very much. Terrapagos, I'm not going to rank because it's not going to be legal, but it's broken. It's a broken mon. I'm not going to talk about it very much, though. We got Pecharunt on this tier list. If you guys do not know what Pecharunt actually is, it's the new mythical for the Scarlet and Violet games. It's data mined to have an in-game event around Pokemon Day, so like in February of 2024. So it probably won't be in the game for another 4 months, 3-4 months around there. So I can't talk about it at all, but at least from what was data mined, it seems like to be like a really broken mythical mon. So I don't think it's going to be legal at all. So I'm not going to talk about it very much. We got Alolan Exeggutor. I think this thing can be good under Trick Room, but apart from that, I think the main problem with this thing is you're kind of forced to Terra, because the Dragon Grass typing is good offensively, but defensively it's just really bad. I think that's the only real niche you're going to have. Same with like Exeggutor. I probably put him like at the same tier. You have Chlorophyll on Exeggutor, but its speed just really isn't the greatest, and you're better off just using a lot of other stuff that can take more advantage of Sun, if that's what you're looking for. Hitmonlee is decent. It's another Unburden user, which the game kind of lacks Unburden users. I think the only other like most common Unburden users before were like Hawlucha, and once in a Great Moon you'd maybe see, and then like the other one would probably be like Sneasler. So it gives the game another Unburden user, but I don't think it's going to be that good. Hitmonchan, I don't think this thing's going to be that good at all. I don't know. I don't think it's that good. You're in a format where Flutter Mane is like one of the top usage mons, and you don't really have the stats to really compete with a lot of the other fighting types, especially like Iron Hands and a few of the other ones. I think it's D tier. I'm not going to put it in F tier because I don't think it's actually like useless, but D tier is where it's going to go. Rhydon, useless. There's no reason to really use this thing at all. At least in VGC. Maybe in singles it can be a lot better, but in VGC it's not good. Lapras, I think, is really bad. It gets Perish Song and a few other things, but it does not have Scald, and it's weak to some of the most common stuff like Iron Hands and a few of the other fighting types and stuff that you're going to be running into. Just not that good, especially kind of gets wrecked by there's a few other things it gets wrecked by. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there's a few other things that are really common as well that just gets wrecked by. Incineroar is going to S tier. This mon actually got buffed. They gave this thing Helping Hand. So it's pretty much a mon that you can run any type of way. You can run any item you want on this thing with pretty much any type of move pool or whatever you want this thing to do. You can EV it in any way that you see fit, and it'll do something. That is an S tier. You're going to see this thing on a lot of your teams, and it pairs really well with a lot of stuff. I'm not going to talk about it much anymore because you guys know Incineroar. It's great. Meganium, garbage. I think the only thing they actually buffed for this thing is they gave it knockoff now. Apart from that, that's the only buff it got. Garbage. You're not going to see this thing played at all. For Alligator, I think is way better in singles, but for VGC, it just gets outclassed by everything. You're forced to run this thing with sheer force to actually do damage, and then even then, your speed is so low. I think it's base 78 speed, so you're forced to either set up a Dragon Dance or like run it under Tailwind to actually do something. And I just don't think it's that good, especially when there's so many other water types in the game that just either wall you or just make it so difficult to actually set up to the point where you lose like half your health or you just get destroyed before you're able to do anything. Way better in singles than I think in VGC, unfortunately. Lantern actually is decent. I think Lantern, especially with Terra, can actually be pretty good. I'm not going to put it higher than a C tier because it's still power crept by a lot of stuff, even with like the bulky stats it has. But having Water Absorb and Volt Absorb is still really good, and it has Scald in a really solid move pool. Not going to say too much else about it though because its offensive stats are kind of lacking. The main thing that makes it good is its abilities, move pool, and typing. But Lost Sum, you're not going to see this thing at all. Even with Chlorophyll, I think the main thing this thing actually can get is like you can maybe do with this, maybe set up with like Quiver Dance and then maybe Terra and do that type of thing because like it gets Moonblast and a few other things. You can maybe Terra Fairy and or like some crazy Terra and try to set up, but apart from that, you're not going to use it at all. Even then, I think it's really bad. It's just really frail. Skarmory, this thing gets outclassed by Corviknight in every single way. If this was a singles tier list, I'd put it way higher, but there's no reason to use Skarmory. I'm going to put it in a D tier because it's not like F tier with all these mods, but I'll throw it in D tier. Granbull, I think it's going to be... It has Intimidate, but I don't think it's going to be good at all. It just doesn't do anything. The problem with Granbull is it gets outclassed like by all other fairy types. It just doesn't do anything. Kingdra, I think, is going to be really good. I think for like a rain sweeper, I think Kingdra, at least for like a special rain sweeper, which the game really has not had. You have a bunch of really solid like physical rain sweepers with like Floatzel, Bascu Legion, and a few other ones. And like Dreadnought, I guess. And there's a few other ones that get Swift Swim and can sweep under rain. But as for like a special sweeper for like rain, you don't really have much until now. So I think Kingdra, at least under rain, is probably going to be like the best special rain sweeper under rain. And you can also use Terra to kind of get an advantage either defensively or offensively. And the water dragon typing is actually pretty good. So you got stuff like Draco Meteor, Dragon Pulse. You get Scald, which is huge. A really solid amount of coverage moves. Porygon 2, I think, is really good as well. People are sleeping on Porygon 2. I have not seen it very much, but I had one game where I went against it, and it was just pretty much unkillable. It was Terra Ghost, and it was pretty much unkillable. If you do not have knockoff for Porygon 2 and get rid of the Eviolite, it's just way too bulky. It really is. And it has its self-recovery. It's probably one of the best Trick Room setters in the game, apart from like Cresselia and maybe Dusclops and one or two others. But apart from that, it's incredibly good. I think people are really underestimating Porygon 2 right now, and we're going to see a huge rise in Porygon 2 going forward. I think the only problem is it's really weak to Iron Hands, but even then, it depends what you pair it with, because you can kind of pair it with something that kind of just destroys Iron Hands under Trick Room, or even like outright outspeeds and just kind of destroys it with the type matchup, just to start with. So Smeargle, I think, is really good. I'm going to put Smeargle in S tier because technically, if you really want a Smeargle, you can give it any moveset you want. You can slap it onto your team, and it's going to do something. So, like, with that definition, I can kind of put it into S tier. You can give it any move pool you want. You can throw it onto any team, and it'll do something. So I got to throw it into S tier. It's incredibly good. Alcremie, I'm going to put in B tier. You haven't really seen anything with, like, Alcremie yet. With Decorate, which if you guys don't know what Decorate does, it's pretty much a move that's used on your ally Pokemon that gives you a +2 special attack and attack boost, which is kind of cool. It has a decent move pool. It got a few other cool moves, like buffed moves, and a little bit better of a move pool for this generation, but I haven't seen it very much, and we'll see how it goes to begin with. But I think B tier is a solid place for it. Hitmontop, I think out of all the Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee, like the trio of those, I think it's probably the best one, but I haven't really seen it that much. I think there's a lot of better Intimidate mons. It gets Fake Out, it gets Priority. It's a pretty bulky fighting type, but when you're a fighting type with Flutter Mane running around as like one of the top usage mons. It's kind of holding you back from doing a lot of stuff. So Raikou, I'm going to put an A tier. I think Raikou is really solid. I think, especially under rain, I think the one thing people aren't really looking at is Raikou under rain, with like Thunder and being able to have like either an offensive or even like defensive Terra under rain. Calm Mind is really good. It gets Snarl, it gets Volt Switch and a few other things. Weather Ball, pretty good. Just a really solid electric type. That's the thing that Raikou really is. It's a really solid electric type, and now you have Terra you can use to actually go into like either an offensive or defensive Terra. Plus it has Scald again, which is great. So you can kind of run it either more of as a supportive, like a fast supportive mon with like Snarl and like support moves, or you can actually run it like offensively. And it's one of the better electric types right now, which you don't really see very much. And I think it can feel a really solid niche. So that's why I'm throwing it into A tier. Entei is going to A+. This thing's crazy. Bandit Sacred Fire pretty much kills everything. If you are not a mon that has like an immunity, like Heatran, for example, with Flash Fire, which I guess doesn't really even matter because Heatran actually, or Entei gets Stomping Tantrum for Heatran now, so you can kind of deal with that thing if you really want to. But like Bandit Sacred Fire, if you want to run this thing, I think the most common you're going to be running with this thing is either with Charcoal, with Life Orb, or just like straight out Band alongside like a Chien-Pao or like under Tailwind. This thing is crazy. It's crazy. Sacred Fire, it has pretty much no switch-ins, and it just does so much damage. And even if you do live, you always have that chance of getting burned, which just cripples so much stuff. Not to mention you also have the Terra normal E-Speed now, so you have priority, which is great. And you also have Stomping Tantrum, and you have a few other coverage moves, but mainly with this thing, you're going to be clicking two moves. You're either going to be clicking Terra normal E-Speed, or you're going to either even Terra Fire like Sacred Fire. And even with like a Terra Fire boost, like there's nothing that lives at Sacred Fire, even if it's resistant most of the time, with like a Choice Banded boost. It's crazy. Entei is crazy. I think out of the legendary dog trio, I think the best one that's returning is probably Entei, at least as of right now. It's crazy. If you guys haven't used Entei yet, it's really good. We're going to see a lot more Entei being played. Suicune, I'm going to talk about next. I'm going to put Suicune in probably A tier. I think for like a bulky water type, having 115 defense and special defense is really, really good. It also is a non-flying type that gets Tailwind, which is huge. It got Scald back, which is huge. And a bunch of other stuff. Icy Wind, Ice Beam, Snarl, Calm Mind. It has Rest, Sleep Talk. It has a bunch of other stuff it can do. It's just a really solid mon. Mirror Coat as well, which is really solid. It's a really solid mon. A really good bulky water type that I think you're going to be seeing once in a while, and it's really solid. You're going to be seeing it on a lot of teams. Lugia, I don't think it's going to be allowed. I'm not going to talk about it. Same with Ho-Oh. I don't think that's going to be allowed. Sceptile is back. It has Unburden, and they actually gave it some buffs. Yeah, I think it gets Shed Tail now, and I think it's one other. I think they gave it Knockoff or some other. They gave it some other move apart from a Shed Tail, but the main buff it got was Shed Tail. I don't know if it's really going to be viable, though. I think there's going to be a mon that you're going to see a lot more in singles than VGC. I'm going to put in I'll put it in C tier because there really isn't that many unburdened Pokemon around. You can maybe pair this thing alongside like a Rillaboom and have like the double grass spam, which could be pretty good. But apart from that, I don't think it's going to be that good. Blaziken, I think, is one of the most overrated Pokemon that people thought was going to be coming back and just hasn't really done anything. I think the main problem with Blaziken is you really rely on the speed boost, and with Intimidate running around with like Incineroar and a bunch of other stuff, if you get intimidated, you're kind of just made irrelevant. I don't know. It got a couple buffs too. I think it's Aura Sphere now and a few other things. It got some small buffs with a few different moves that aren't really crazy on it, but it gives them more options. And the most common thing you're going to be seeing is maybe like speed boost, like alongside like a redirection mon with Sword Dance. But even then, it's just kind of, I wouldn't say it's really got power crafts, but there's a lot of stuff in the game right now that kind of just makes it too difficult for it to set up, or like Intimidate just really common right now, which kind of shuts it down automatically. Swampert's back. They gave it Flip Turn, and they gave it Knockoff. I still don't think it's gonna be that good. I think this thing will be way better in singles. I just don't think it's gonna be that good in VGC. Plusle and Minun, these are garbage Pokemon. You're not gonna see them at all. They're really bad. Flygon, unfortunately, it's just got power crept. I think the only thing you're gonna see Flygon being used for is that it's a ground type Pokemon that has Levitate, and also a dragon type that can actually work in like sand. So you can run like Focus Sash and not have to take any chip damage from Sandstorm. Maybe that's one niche you can actually use with this thing. Plus, I guess if you really want to, you can run like Terra Electric and not have any type of weakness. But even then, there's so many other better mons. Why would I run a Flygon and just have to dedicate a Terra type for it to be at least decent when I can run like a Raikou or even like any other electric type that's better? I have no idea why. Unfortunately, Flygon, at least in Gen 3, was a really good mon, especially with Dragon type being way better back then. This thing's just got power crept out of the game, unfortunately. Really cool mon, but just needs some major stat changes. Base 100s is just not enough anymore, and base 80 defense is just not enough. It's just not that good. Milotic, I'm not going to talk about because that was already in the game. I don't know why that's even on this list. Metagross, I think, is another mon that's really solid. Mainly, it's a mon that's going to be dealing with stuff like Flutter Mane and that type of thing, but I think the one thing that's going to be kind of holding Metagross back is Incineroar, because Incineroar is going to be really common. It hits Metagross for super effective damage with both of its stabs, unless it Terras. So you're kind of forcing a Terra onto the Metagross if it wants to do anything. Apart from that, I'd probably put it higher. I think it's really, really good, though. It has a really good move pool, really good stats, just really solid mon. Latios and Latios, I don't know if they're going to be returning, but so I'm not going to rank those. Rampardos, I'm going to put in C tier. The only time you're going to see this thing is with like a choice scarf or like a choice band under either like Trick Room or like with Tailwind. And apart from that, you're not going to be seeing it that much. It has a crazy attack stat, but it's so frail and it's pretty slow. Bastiodon, garbage. You're not going to see this thing. Even with the newly buffed body press that it gets, it's not going to be seen. I think Rhyperior is a mon that a lot of people are sleeping on. I think Rhyperior with Terra is crazy, especially with Solid Rock. So you can actually get rid of your like fighting weakness or your like 4 times weakness to grass or water with a Terra. And you can actually Terra into like a type like normal to the point where you only have like 1 weakness. And the 1 weakness you do have to fighting types is negated with Solid Rock. So you make the Rhyperior pretty much unkillable. And you can run like an Assault Vest or like anything you really want to run on this thing. It has a really good defense and attack stats and pretty solid HP. And a really solid move pool. I think you might see a little bit of Horizon Rhyperior. And it's pretty good into Incineroar as well, which is a plus for it. What else do we have? Electivire. Electivire got buffed. It has Supercell Slam now, y'all. And it's pretty much what it is Supercell Slam is actually an electric type version of High Jump Kick. So if somebody protects or you miss, you take recoil damage, which is bad in VGC. I think Electivire is going to be way better in singles. It's not going to be that good in VGC. Even if you wanted to run like an electric type, it has Motor Drive, which is decent. But even then, if you wanted to run a Motor Drive mon, I'd actually think Zebstrika would be better because it makes a little bit better out of a Terra type than Electivire does, and it gets a better move pool. I don't know, I just think it's pretty bad, unfortunately. And it also gets Follow Me now as well, but you're never going to be using that. Same with Magmortar. I think Magmortar is really bad. I'm actually putting Magmortar in F tier. I think there's no reason to be using this thing at all. It got Follow Me now, and it has an okay move pool, but it's just not good. Just not a good mon. Meowstic Female, I'm going to put it at a D tier. The only reason you're going to be running this thing is because it has a competitive and it has Expanding Force. It's a faster Expanding Force user, but even then, why would I run Expanding Force on this thing when there's a bunch of other new, like, returning Pokemon that actually use Expanding Force way better than this thing does, and have way better stats? Meowstic Male, though, I think is really good. I'm going to put Meowstic Male with Prankster up into A tier. This thing actually gets Yawn. It's another Pokemon that is actually a Prankster Pokemon apart from Illamuse that gets Fake tiers, which a lot of people aren't really considering. And it also gets another bunch of other cool stuff. Dual Screens, Fake Out, buy Level Up this time. Not as an egg move, buy Level Up, which is huge. A bunch of other cool stuff. Prankster and Prison. It gets Psychic Noise, which is a new psychic move, which is pretty solid to have on like a supportive mon. It's really solid. A really solid Prankster mon. I think you're going to see this thing a lot, or at least a decent amount. It also has really solid like bulky stats. Like I think it's like 70 something and 80 in special defense, which ain't too bad compared to a lot of the other Prankster Pokemon. It's solid bulky stats. It has a decent HP. 104 speed isn't too bad either. Porygon Z is really good, but I just don't know whether you're really going to fit this thing into a team just because it's one of those mons that really requires you to either run a Choice Scarf or run Tailwind to make it work. And even then, like, there's so many Ghost types that are running around that you can't really spam normal moves that easily, so I don't know. I don't know how I'd really fit it in, but I throw it at like B tier just because it's Porygon Z and it still hits like a truck. Minior, you're not going to see very much. I can see Minior maybe on like sand teams or even like teams with redirection with like maybe Shell Smash, but I'm not going to put it any higher than a D tier. I think it'll maybe be better in singles than VGC. Comfey, I think, is going to be really good. I went against a Comfey team with like Galarian Moltres, which is an idea I just gave you guys. Yeah, Comfey and Galarian Moltres combo, and it was pretty much unkillable. Every time pretty much what the Moltres did is it went into it was a Terra Poison defensive Terra, so I wasn't able to hit it with Fairy type moves. It just kept recovering. All the Comfey did was just keep on healing the Moltres over and over, and every time it got below half health, it would get a Berserk boost, and it would just keep doing more and more damage, to the point where I ended up losing the game. Because I didn't have anything for the Comfey, and I did not have anything for the Moltres. Every time I would try to target the Comfey, it would either Drain and Kiss or Giga Drain, or just Protect, and then the Moltres would just keep on doing damage and getting more and more boost every time it would drop below half, and I would keep getting healed over and over. That's one scary combo I just gave you guys as an idea. Don't use that against me because that shit's not fun to play against. But I think Comfey is another mon that a lot of people are kind of overlooking right now. Once we see a lot more stuff play out and a lot more combos and stuff being found out about the game, at least like in the format wise, you're going to see Comfey being a lot more used because I think it's really, really good. Floral Healing is really good. You get the priority, Draining Kiss, Giga Drain, and a few other things. It gets a lot of really good supportive moves. Its stats really aren't the greatest, but it has a decent speed stat and decent SpDef, so you can kind of EV it to take a lot of hits, especially with the constant recovery, and even with Terra, can be pretty good. Emboar, I'm going to put it like, I think this mon's way better. I think this mon is way better in singles. It's not that good in VGC. I'm going to put it like a D tier. You're not going to see it at all. It's just too slow. The only time you're going to be seeing this is in Trick Room, and even then there's just so many better Trick Room mons to be using. Whimsicott's going up into S tier. I think this thing's crazy good. I'm not going to talk about it very much, but Whimsicott's back, everybody. There you go. Scrafty. I'm going to put Scrafty. I think Scrafty has potential, but we just haven't seen it yet. And the main problem is it's 4 times weak to Fairy, so you're forced to Terra on this thing to actually do anything. It has really good abilities, though. It has 4 really good abilities, and it has really good move pool and really solid stats to do stuff. The problem is its typing is just defensively is just really bad, with Fairy types being really common, stuff like Flutter Mane and being weak to fighting type moves and stuff. Excadrill I think is really good. I think if you want a Sand mon, you're going to be running Excadrill under Sand. I think it's one of the best Sand abusers in the game now, and probably the best Sand abuser we currently have, going right up to A+ tier. If you are running Sand, you're going to be using Excadrill, no questions asked. Cincino, I'm going to put that in. I don't think it's bad as the other mons down in F tier, but it's way better in singles. You're not going to be seeing this thing at all in VGC. Galvantula, I had high hopes for Galvantula, but I think it's got power crept by a lot of stuff. It gets Sticky Web, it gets Electro Web, and it's a decently fast electric mon, but it's just kind of outclassed by a lot of other stuff. We got a Renicholas. This thing actually under Trick Room could be pretty good. I think a lot of people need to start experimenting with Renicholas because it has really solid offensive stats. It's really bulky, and under Trick Room, it's actually really, really solid. I think we're going to be seeing this thing under Trick Room, and it might have some type of niche in that way, so I'll put it like a B tier. Golurk, you're not going to be seeing at all, and unfortunately, I'm going to put it probably in like F tier. You're not going to see this thing at all. It just gets wrecked by everything. Especially with Incineroar running around, you're not going to see it at all. It's way better in singles. Cobalion, I think, is decent. I'm going to put Cobalion at like a B tier. I'm not going to talk about it very much because you haven't really seen it played at all very much, but just by its stats alone, we kind of know what it can do. I'll probably put it like a B tier. Terrakion, I'm going to put it like a B tier as well. I'm going to put actually probably all the like the Swords of Justice apart from Virizion, either in B or C tier. I think the main one you're going to maybe see is Terrakion because I think it could be pretty good, but I think these mons kind of just got outshadowed by a lot of the new stuff or like some of the other returning stuff that came to the game. Funny or not, actually, Keldeo came back. I don't know if Keldeo is going to be actually legal, but I've seen Keldeo on a few teams, and actually it's done really well. Keldeo as a special water type and a special fighting and water type has a really cool typing that we currently do not have. And this thing under Rain is actually really good. It actually gets Scald, it gets Sacred Sword, a bunch of other really solid coverage. Plus with Terra, this thing can either run Terra defensively or offensively, and it's like a water or fighting type to hit even harder. It has a really solid speed of 108, and it has a typing that the game does not have yet, which is really solid. And it's also another special water type that's really fast alongside the fighting typing, with Sacred Sword being a really good move. I'm going to put this thing like an A tier. If it is legal, I don't know if it'll be legal, but if it is, you can see this thing under Rain, or even as like a Scarfed Mon could be pretty good, or like Specs or something, or Life Orb could be pretty good. We got Malamar. Unfortunately, I don't think this thing's going to be that good. I'm going to put it in C tier because I think it has a specific niche with like Contrary, and you can maybe set up with like Superpower and that type of thing, but you're not going to see that much. Pre-Marina is underrated. I think Pre-Marina as a water type is really, really good. It is one of the only, I think it's actually the only fairy water type in the game currently, and has really solid stats. Really, really good move pool, and it also has Terra now, so you can actually Terra into like a grass type and get like a stab energy ball off it as well, which is really cool. Terra makes this thing even a lot better. I think it's going to be really, really good. I think whether you want to run this thing under Tailwind or even like Trick Room could be really, really good, or even like with Assault Vest. Run like max defense, max HP, or like run a bunch of HP and a decent amount of defense and some special attack with like an Assault Vest could be really good. Really solid mon. It has all the tools it needs to be good, but we're just going to see how it goes, and I think it has potential. Toucannon's garbage, going to F tier. You're never going to see this thing at all. Just way too slow and not good. Araquanid could be decent. I think Araquanid I'll put in like C tier. I think the main problem with Araquanid is it's just too slow. I think that's the main problem with it. It kind of just gets destroyed by a lot of stuff on the physical side. Water Bubble is a really cool ability because you can't get burned and it boosts your water type moves. But apart from spamming water moves, it doesn't really do anything, and that's the main problem with Araquanid. I think you can maybe see it under Rain, though. Maybe in Rain it could be decent, but there's just a lot of other stuff it's competing with. Apart from that, what else do we have here? We have a bunch of legendaries down here that I'm not going to really be talking about. I think that's actually it. That's all the mons. I think that's actually it. Because all these mons, Pecharunt, Terrapagos, all these mons down here are not going to be legal at all, I don't think. This is Reshiram, Zekrom, here in black and white. I don't think they're going to be legal. For some reason, the Regis are actually on this list as well, which they did not even return. It also has the Deoxys forms, which are in the game currently, but I don't think they're going to be legal in VGC at all. So I'm not going to really talk about them. If this was a singles tier list, I would probably rank a lot of this other stuff, apart from the stuff that's probably going to be like Ubers. But it doesn't really pay talking about it if it's not going to be legal in Regulation F. So that is the entire list, y'all. I think the only other thing maybe I would change is maybe Rhydon. I think maybe Rhydon I could maybe switch up to D tier because I kind of feel like that's a little bit... It has some stuff it can do. And it's not as bad as all these other mods that are currently down here. So I'd maybe change this to a D tier. But apart from that, that's the list, y'all. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I know there's probably going to be somebody that says Emboar is way too low because there's a lot of people that like Emboar. But I just don't think it's that good. I really don't. I think it's good, pretty damn bad, apart from maybe on like Trick Room. But if somebody wants to change my mind, let me know. I'll be on the lookout for some Incineroar teams if I do go against them, and I'll let you guys know. Apart from that, that is the entire list, y'all. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you guys agree with me on something? There's something you do not agree with me on? Or if there's something I forgot to explain, or if there's something I did not see and kind of overlooked with something on this list, let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. I got a bunch of other stuff on the way, Scarlet and Violet related. I do VGC content over here. I do singles content. I stream over here on the channel 2 times a week. I stream a bunch of other games as well. Overwatch 2, Apex Legends, Splatoon 3, and a bunch of other things. I also stream on Twitch on Sunday nights, usually. Link to that down in the description down below. And if you guys would like to become a channel member and support the channel even further, there is a join button down below right beside the subscribe button, and a link to that in the description if it doesn't show up for you. So apart from that, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys in a future video.